On your feet! Get them going!
Hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever the case may be. Welcome to Cross Examinations Live. I'm your host, Mike S. Miller, and I'm not a pastor, priest, rabbi. I was going to say prophet. Clearly, I'm not a prophet. Otherwise, I'd have more Bitcoin. I'm not, or a theologian, or a particularly smart guy. I'm just a guy on the internet talking about the Bible, and here you are too. So, what does that make you? Mike the Hair Miller. Well, I took a shower and now I'm letting it dry. I hate putting my hair in a ponytail before it is completely dry. Kind of annoying to me, so devil's air. Hello again, Deus Volt, Mike and Clan. Just saw Starship Troopers again with my mother. Man, it's a fun movie, still better than L.A. Snow White. Yes, you are, Mike. You're very smart. I am smart. SMRT, smart. Well, sort of in relation to what we were talking about yesterday with ye old secular humanist and Christianity. I thought one of the arguments that I've seen it brought up, but it should be brought up more often. That what is the evidence? What is the evidence of Christianity being true? Well, if something is true, shouldn't it play out in results? Like communism. Is the theory of Marxism true? Well, we've seen it play out and we've seen the results, right? Capitalism, free markets. Is the theory of free market economics true? Well, we've seen it play out. Hong Kong was the freest free market on earth, and it blew up. That city, Hong Kong, went from a little freaking fishing village to the economic capital of the East in just a few decades. So principles, the truth of a principle determines its, I think, and you could tell me if I'm wrong. Like I said, I'm not that smart. The truth of principles should be measurable by the results of those principles. Right? Am I wrong here? Are the results of principles not a determinate factor of the truth of those principles? Tina says, in philosophy, if something is true, the results can vary based on the context and the theory of the truth being applied. Example, please. First, let's define true and then define false. Truth is right and real. True is right and real. Is that the simplest definition of true? Something is right and it is real. And false would be wrong and imaginary. What's the opposite of truth? False is the opposite of truth, right? It is. No, Laveau? Okay, Laveau, give me something better then. Give me something better. Let's have a dialogue. Why cannot the truth of a proposition be measured by the results of that proposition? I mean, in a real sense, for good or ill. If your intent of a proposition is to do harm, then the result of that proposition being true would be harm being done. No? I'm just thinking the way you framed it with capitalism. Well, I wasn't saying capitalism. Was I saying capitalism? I meant free markets, right? Like a principle having results means it's true. It is evidence that it is true. No, right? I think it's pretty good evidence that the principle, for good or ill, playing out as the principle would dictate, is evidence for the truth of the principle. Right? I mean, that seems kind of obvious. I can't think of a case. Maybe you can, but I cannot think of a case where the opposite is true. Nazism. Okay, what is the principle of Nazism? And I think the principle of Nazism was proven false. Or do you mean true as in it exists? I mean, if I have a principle and I move on that principle toward an end, right? Like, again, the principle of the free market is that everyone walks away from every. First of all, no one gets in between two people and their exchange. And in every exchange, both parties are happy. If you boil down the free market, that's basically what it is, right? A true free market system. No one gets in between. Me and Joe Schmo, we want to make an exchange. Me and Joe Schmo make an exchange that we both agree upon, and we both walk away from that exchange happy or happier. So the principle of the free market is maximizing a market and maximizing the happiness of the people in the market. And the most free market on earth for decades was Hong Kong up until probably a couple decades ago. And it went from like this muddy little fishing village to the economic powerhouse of the East, which the East is a big place. And then Communist China came in and said, that's a nice city you got there. Or be ashamed if something happened to it. Right? So the principle of the free market was proven to be true in the truest sense of true by the results you saw in the freest free market on earth. Does that make sense? Or am I just flapping my gums here? That's like sort of the clearest example I can set because of what an absolute free market Hong Kong was versus the economic principle of Marxism always tend to lead to really bad stuff like mass starvation and whatnot. So the truth of Marxism can be judged by the results of Marxism being implemented. Marxism claimed that it would reach socialist utopia and everybody would be happy because nobody would own anything. That is clearly demonstrably false because you know what? People freaking like to own things. Something is true if it works out and is beneficial. Again, it is evidence that it is true. It is not a guarantor that it is true, but it is. Can you deny that it is evidence that it is true? I think the results are pretty good evidence of truth or falsehood. Again, the market dynamic thing is the most. It's the easiest one I think I can think of off the top of my head. Do you dismiss that or do you agree that it is evidence? I think I'm understanding more where you're coming from. Okay, good. So do you agree then that the results of a premise or a principle is evidence of the truth or falsehood of that principle? Christian Commonwealth. What's a Commonwealth? I don't even understand. What is a Commonwealth, pure blood? I always thought it was like a township or something. No? I'm not quite sure. Why was it God's will so to open unto us his word in writing? What was it before writing? Oral. It was oral, and it was memorized. I honestly have no idea when it went from oral to written. They may have history in the Talmud or something I don't know about. But yeah, his word is his word. The was with God, and the word was God. Ain't that a verse somewhere? Yeah, it's John 1:1. In the beginning was the word was with God, and the word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. But I think he's talking about the written word, not the word as in Jesus. Jesus is the word, but I don't think it means the same word as when we say the word as in the Bible. I could be wrong. I'm wrong all the time, right? Am I right or am I wrong? So, Laveau, do you have a conclusion on whether you are agreeing that results of a principle are evidence of the truth of the principle? I'm just waiting for an answer. I'd really like to know what the other side can agree to. Tina, did you have another example? Results can vary based on the context and theory of a truth being applied. I'm trying to think of another example, and I'm thinking about that. Yeah, so that's why I'm trying to think of another example. That's. See, I just wish I were smarter, guys. I need to have a bigger brain. Hey, share, whatever. Do whatever you want. And it's not a matter of sides. No, this guy. I mean, I think you could apply it to any principle. Like I think that the like for example, you say Nazism. Well, what was the core principle of Nazism? Right, the core. Here's the thing: if you read the 1938 Nazi Party platform, Bernie Sanders could have written that freaking thing. I promise you. Aside from a couple of things about the Jews, all of the political, not the racist stuff. If you just remove, there's like three or four racist things in there. If I remove the racist things, all of the political stuff, freaking Bernie Sanders could have written that. It would have lined up exactly with Bernie Sanders and his principles, which are very much just Marxist principles. Nazism is very much politically just Marxism. Running from sounds in a bush will help you survive, but it doesn't mean every unsound is dangerous. Is that a principle? Oh, okay. Here's a principle. If you are producing something for the sake of entertainment, you are more likely to be successful at entertaining people. As opposed to if you're producing something to push a political agenda, you're going to end up not entertaining people. That is a principle. And the truth of that principle is borne out by the sales of Snow White. Darn it. I'm sorry. I've got like For some reason, like all the skin on the inside left, my inside left cheek, it's like all my skin is dead and peeling, and it's really gross, and it feels like crap. And you don't care. I think it depends on the claim being made, but in general, the results of something could be used as evidence. Results being good evidence for something is what I'm aiming at. I'll take it. I'll take that. It was just socialism of the German race. Well, it was socialism plus racism. That's all Nazism was. It was socialism plus racism, except that rather than nationalizing the businesses, they just controlled the owners of the business. And if you weren't playing on the right team, then maybe we take your business and give it to someone who does like to play on the right team. So that's what they would do. It's like if you had a business owner and they were like, they didn't like what the Nazis were doing, they go, okay, you go bye-bye. Hans, I have business here for you. And they would give your business to a Nazi loyalist. So that's the difference, because like in real socialism, in pure socialism, they would take the businesses. Wait, what is the difference? You had to be loyal to the Nazi Party. I'm sure in Russia, they didn't just take the businesses from the Jews or whoever else and just give them to random people. They probably gave them to communist loyalists. So functionally, there probably wasn't a difference. I don't know why people try to make it out that there's such a big difference. Pureblood says, in fine, it was never known that men so universally agreed in any one thing as in their design of tormenting Christians. In fine? What is fine? The correspondence theory of truth is at its core an ontological thesis. A belief is true if there exists an appropriate entity, a fact, to which it corresponds. If there is no such entity, the belief is false. A belief is true if there exists an appropriate entity, a fact to which it corresponds. So the belief in a free market, the belief, basically you're in this example, you're saying the belief in the belief that the free market is the best economic model to follow is borne out to the fact that the freest market on earth bore the best economic results on earth until it was stifled by communist China. So that belief borne out is evidence that that belief is true. But that's not an entity. That's, what do you call it? It's a theory. It's an operational mode, right? The vote says Nazism is far right totalitarian at its. It's not centered around class struggle. What is right and left to you? Because Bernie Sanders is, according to American politics, Bernie Sanders is very, very much on the left. I have read the political platform of the Nazi Party, and outside of the racist elements, which 3 or 4, I can't remember, it very much reads like Bernie Sanders wrote it. So how can you say it's far right when all of their principles are far left? You can't say racism is far right. There's way more racists on the left than there are on the right. Are you sure the cheek issue isn't related to the carnivore diet? Jeff, I've been on the carnivore diet for 2 years. This is just something that's irritating me right in like past 2 days. It was eugenics and it was big in America before the war. Among leftists. That racism was core to its conceptualization of socialism. Is racism part of socialism? I don't think so. I've read the Communist Manifesto. I don't remember anything being particularly racist. Nazism's economic system was fascist rather than communism. Right. The question there is what makes fascism right wing? And I'm going by today's definitions of what is left and right. What in fascism is right wing according to our understanding of what is right and left wing? Nationalism? Caring about your own country. So you can't care about your own country if you're on the left. Well, I guess that would explain a lot about the left in America, wouldn't we? They don't care about America, and when they pretend, you'll never go to a Democratic, rally and see American flags. Televised apocalypse. What's up? Blessings. Today's the day the Lord has made. Rejoice and be glad in it. I try to at least. Amen to that. Amen and amen. Bernie is a democratic socialist, not a communist. Okay. You don't think Bernie is pro-communism? Do you really not think that? It's absolutely around class struggle. Socialism? Yeah. That's why it doesn't work in America, because everybody thinks they're going to get rich eventually. So it doesn't class struggle thing doesn't work. That's why they try to break us up among race, religion, all that fun stuff, sexuality. We are made with such natures as to be deceived in those things that appear most evident to us. In terms of global politics, Bernie is left-leaning progressive. Okay, well then that's what you would have to call the 1938 Nazi political platform. I could drag it up and read it to you, or you can look it up yourself. Take out anything having to do with race, like, oh, let's get rid of the Jews and all that kind of stuff, and just read the Nazi political ideologies. I promise you, Bernie Sanders could have written that thing. So that being the case, what made the Nazis left or right? And it's not just right, it's far right. You know what far right is? Anarchy. That's this because we say left and right, right? Left is total government control, planned economics, and you will own nothing and be happy. This is the far left. The far right is, I don't want any freaking government in anything in my life. Get the government, the far right is as close to anarchy as you can get. So more government left, less government right. How is fascism anywhere near the far right? Fascism was total government control over business. How this became what people think just boggles my mind. Actually, National Socialism was just dressed up communism. It wasn't nationalist because they kept invading other countries. That's true. And it wasn't communist because it was collectivist. But true, in the scope of American politics, Bernie is a communist. Well, we all just know that he would go there if he could. It could be cheek meat syndrome, Mike. Jeff, stop making things up. The term far right is a buzzword in mainstream media nowadays, so they use it if they don't know what to put there, basically. Some media outlets have confirmed it, at least here in Europe. Bernie Sanders is a communist. There you go. Well, as a white man, I was told what I suffered at school was deserving. What did you suffer at school, my friend? It's not a right or left. It's a tool for either side. Wait, what did you say before? What's a tool for either side? Right? Oh, racism. Probably racism you're talking about. Yeah, racism is not... Racism, you're right. You're exactly right. Racism isn't left or right. It is just a tool that the left or the right uses to bash the other. It's the football in the game. Nazism was a form of state capitalism. I mean, controlling... I'll be honest with you. The fascism thing, we have all these regulations in America, all these glad handings, all these big corporations sliding into the DMs of like senators and stuff to make regulations that give their companies benefits over smaller competition. That is very much call it a soft fascist sort of crony capitalism is what we're talking about, right? Crony capitalism is very much a soft fascist capitalism. And nobody on the right wants that. I hate to tell you that, but nobody on the right wants that. That's why when Trump came in and he got rid of 40,000 regulations, the right was like, let's go, because we want the free market. The free market is the right-wing dream. The far right is free market. The more government control you have over business, the further left you go. So when you say state capitalism, that is state-controlled markets, that is left. That is not right at all. Just the word capitalism thrown in there doesn't make it right-wing. So I can't think of anything that is specifically right-wing that was promoted by the Nazi Party. Can anyone? So then why do we continually hear this lie that the Nazi Party was right-wing? Far right. They say far right, as if to scare people away from far right. I'm far right. The American left isn't left. LOL. The Democrats are the right-leaning centric at best. The loonies, because the far left people we consider loonies, even though they have control of the microphones. Let's see. Let me help you out there with this.
Crypto is a lousy investment.
Tina says, fascism is far-right, authoritarian, and ultranationalist political ideology and movement characterized by a dictatorial leader, centralized autocracy, militarism, forcible suppression of opposition, belief in natural social hierarchy, subordination of individual interests in the perceived good of the nation or race, and strong regimentation of society and the economy, opposed to Marxism, democracy, anarchism, pluralism, free markets, egalitarianism, communism, liberalism, and socialism. Fascism is at the far right of the left-right spectrum. And again, I completely disagree with that. Okay, so is authoritarian right wing? Because I'm pretty sure we've got lots and lots of authoritarian dictators from communist countries, right? Right? Okay, so we have to take that one off. Obviously, authoritarianism is not right wing. Ultra nationalistic political ideology and movement. So, are you saying you cannot be nationalistic if you're left wing? That might be the only thing, because as it's playing out, we clearly see the left wing hates their own country. Although I don't think that's the way it was in communist Russia. I think in communist Russia, they were very nationalistic about Russia. Right? There was a great deal of Russian pride in communist Russia. There's a great deal of Chinese pride in communist China. So I don't think that because you're proud of your country, that's not the way it's working here right now with the way we're trying to friggin' destroy. The left is just trying to destroy the country from within. But that's the closest thing I can think on this list. Dictatorial leader, again, Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot, who's the idiot in Cuba? Every communist country, dictatorial leader. Take that one off the board. Centralized autocracy. So an autocrat is just led by the rich. Well, the thing in communist countries, the only rich people end up being the communist leaders. So the communist leaders become the centralized autocracy, although they stole their wealth from the people who actually made it. So again, that is not right wing. Militarism, obviously not right wing. I mean, hell, friggin' the USSR. Let's face it, the USSR are the ones that defeated the Nazis. So let's not pretend like it was America that defeated the Nazis. But that was obviously a left wing. So you have to take that off the board. Forcible suppression of opposition. Who does that better than the left? Literally. Who suppresses opposition better than the left? We just went through 8 years of this with Donald Trump and the left. They tried to kill the man. Belief in a natural social hierarchy. I don't know what that means. A natural social hierarchy. Is that the racism thing? Like, because we have blonde hair, blue eyes, we are. I mean, look, Hitler got fascism from Mussolini. So, but Mussolini didn't have all the Aryan race garbage. And again, the hierarchy in communism is replaced by the heads of the Communist Party. That's how it ends up being. They're the ones that take all the power. So they have the social hierarchy. So I don't think I can necessarily say that is right wing. Subordination of individual interests for the perceived good of the nation or race. That's straight out of the Communist Manifesto. That's so left wing. And a strong regimentation of society and the economy. What? How do you start that whole thing, Tina? I know you're reading a definition, but how do you start this list of left-wing attributions with fascism is a far right? How do you start it with that and then make any sense out of everything else that you just listed? It makes zero sense. Am I nuts here? I can say that fascism was to the right of communism. I can say that. But it's about, say this is the spectrum and communism's over here. Fascism would be like here on the left-right spectrum. You know who the right wing was in World War II, right? It wasn't England. England was like here on the left-right spectrum. England was very much a socialist country before World War II. A lot of the countries in Europe were. You know who the right wing in World War II was, right? USA. USA. We were the right wing in World War II. Everybody else was over here. This idea, yeah, okay, I get it. You're this far away from communism. That is not far right. And this constant drumbeat is just abject malarkey, and it drives me nuts that people still say it. Do you realize we will see poison without regulations, right? Bro, have you seen the American population? Do you not think we are being poisoned right now? Like 80% of America is obese. It's disgusting and insane and deadly. We feed kids drinks that are literally 40% sugar. We're being poisoned under the regulations we have. If you're talking about literally like, oh, you're going to put this in there and it's going to kill you, guess what's going to happen to the business that does that? It's going to go out of business really quick. Guess what happened? You know what's regulated? Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, all those little needle sticky jabby things that killed a whole bunch of people. Those are regulated because you can't sue them. They're outside of the bounds of the market because you can't sue them to force them into a corrective state. That's the corrective state of the free market. If a company does something that causes you harm, you can sue them out of business. They self-regulate their ability to harm people because they want to have customers. If you take away that necessity and then have the government force everybody to get a jab, that's freaking fascism. All that crap that we just saw with the jab, that was fascism. We know it's all part of the agenda, Mike. You're right. No pun intended. They lie to us every day. True. The left loves DEI. The right hates DEI. Why? The DEI is anti-meritocratical. Meritocratical. That's a neat word. Also, DEI is CRT, just in different code. Correct, sir. To be clear, I agree with Mike Sistine. I figured it was, Tina. I knew that. I mean, you've heard it all, but just going down the list of the reasons they say it's far right, it's like, if you've got a brain in your head and you read those and you think through them one at a time, you're like, how is this being labeled far right? The world has never seen a communist state as Marx described. Oh, the perfect communist state. We'll try over and over and over again, but somehow we always get it wrong because there's this fantasy part in Marxism that no Marxist tends to ever comprehend. It's that people suck. See, that's the great thing about the Bible. The Bible starts off with, we kind of suck. And then we try to correct our suckiness by following God and obeying his word and following the instruction manual on how not to suck. Communism, Marxism, it's implicit that they think that people don't suck. I'm 53 years old and I've met a whole lot of people, thousands and thousands of people, and I've watched people go through different situations at different times and watched the greed, the malevolence, the cowardice of humankind flourish in the most spoiled country in the history of planet Earth. I am very, very, very sure that people suck. Communism doesn't attest for that. It doesn't not attest. It doesn't It doesn't add that part into the equation of the communist utopia that they wish for, right? So that's why even when you could even have well-meaning Marxists who truly believe that all people are good and eventually we'll get that. But you know what? You ever tried to hire, anybody ever run a business in here and tried to hire people? Did you realize that competence is a rare, I don't know how anything gets done in this country. It is so hard to find competent people. Now, trying to find morally pure people to run your communist agenda is like trying to find nothing but competent people to run your candy factory. It's just not going to happen, right? And so what does that mean? That means you're going to have the Stalins and the Che Guevaras and the Pol Pots and the morally corrupt people who use this infrastructure that you're building to become powerful, become wealthy, all the things that humanity sort of strives for intrinsically. You corrupt very corruptible people. That's just something that the communist utopian dream just gets completely wrong about human nature, and that's why it'll never work. That's why they've tried it over and over. You've noticed, right? They've tried it over and over and over again, and every single time it fails. Meanwhile, we tried a real free market one time in Hong Kong, and it was a raging success, so much that the communists next door wanted Hong Kong back. I mean, come on. Both sides suppress. Can you get out your bubble for a minute and open your mind to discussion? Yeah, go ahead. What do you got? I should probably read Job. I'm going to read Job. You know, it's funny because I started this discussion because I wanted to talk about, there are 2019 Pew Research, 2018 study from Harvard, 2012 Handbook of Religion and Health, 2022 Gallup, just study after study after study after study after study that prove 2006, 2018, 2012, 2010, that prove that religious and in particular Christian beliefs lead to a better personal life and a better society on the whole. That's kind of how I started this whole thing, because the principle measures, or the truth of a principle can be, how do I say it? The evidence of the results of a principle can, the results of a principle can be evidence of the truth of the principle. So to say there is no evidence that Christianity is true, the results of Christianity are evidence that Christianity is true. Just like the results of free markets are evidence of free market principles being true, and the evidence of Marxism are evidence that Marxist principles are not true. Evidence, not fact. I'm not dropping the fact word, but it is evidence. So to claim there is no evidence for Christianity flies in the face of all the evidence. All right, corpse grinder. I do need to get to the Bible. We are being poisoned now. Do you think that gets better with less regulation? Yes. I don't see how it could get any worse, honestly. It takes decades for side effects to show up. It won't make them close with a free market. I disagree. I believe the free market eventually would correct itself in everything. Big pharma is exactly why capitalism is failing. Regulation is why capitalism is failing. And honestly, capitalism isn't failing. It's the more regulation we have, the worse capitalism gets. Merger of corporations and state is textbook fascism. The jab was fascist. Amen. Absolutely. Because humans will human. Exactly, Laveau. We have come to a common ground. Humans gonna human, which is why the Communist Manifesto shouldn't be in the political theory section. It should be in the fantasy section. It's great fantasy. Look, Star Trek is more or less the fantasy result of the Communist Manifesto, right? Nobody owes anything. Although there's still like gold-plated latinum and freaking Picard owns a vineyard, and so none of that really makes sense in the actual way the future of the Earth is. But yeah, whatever. Mismanagement and greed break any system. Well, that's the funny thing, Corpse Grinder. Mismanagement and greed can't break the free market, because mismanagement will break a company. Greed will break a company. Greed will get people fired. But you can't mismanage a company in a free market system where there's no safety net. There's no too big to fail, right? That's what mismanagement and greed get you in a crony capitalist, freaking semi-fascist country like Nazi Germany or modern day America, where banks do you remember George W. This is where George W. Bush lost me, and I disliked him from there. This sentence onward. I had to abandon free market principles to save the free market. Oh, is that what you have to do? No. How about you let those mismanaging greedy banks fail, and let the banks that didn't pull all this garbage rise to the top, right? Not every bank was involved with the housing market disaster. Not every bank was out there mismanaging and being greedy. They didn't make all the money. They didn't, right? They're just like, oh, we're not going to do that. Why don't you let the big banks fail and let the banks that did it right? That would be the free market, right? The free market, those banks would have gone freaking busto. We'll deal with it. And then the good banks that did it right would have risen up to the top. And the principled banks in the principled market, based on the free market principles, would have succeeded. But that's not what crony capitalism does, is it? So everything you're complaining about isn't about the free market. It's about crony capitalist markets, which is basically soft fascism. Don't get me started on the idiots at my work. Most of them can barely work a computer. And dude, competence. Competence is so hard. I don't understand. Why is competence so hard to find? Can you? I mean, there's an average intelligence, right? The middle intelligence, the average intelligence. Half the people on this freaking planet and in this country are above average intelligence. Are you telling me that what do you have to be? How high above average do you have to be a competent person, a competent worker? I don't get it. I honestly don't get it. You don't find folks to be morally right to run a company. You find people that agree with you so you can have a business. Do you remember the subway guy? The subway guy? You mean Jared? Mike, you can't go into a store now without seeing employees standing around looking at their cell phones. When I worked, you'd get fired for that. Right. Corpse Grinder. Big Pharma could be the greatest thing ever, but it's not, because capitalism rewards bad behavior for profit. It's not capitalism. Also, without the capitalism part of Big Pharma, you wouldn't get all the drug breakthroughs. There's the financial motivation to be able to create something new and then hold the copyright on that for, what is it in pharmacy? Is it like 15, 20 years or something like that? You can hold before it has to become generic. Without the motivation, without the financial motivation to create new drugs, there would not be a whole lot of new drugs being made. Who do you think is, let's ask Gronk real quick. What country creates the most new pharmaceuticals and by what percentage? And who is the second most? By how much? Let's find out. Astonishingly, the United States produces 44%. Our one country produces 44% of enemy new molecular entities, drugs, approved between 92 and 2004. Rand report further supports this, noting that by the end of 22, 74% of all new drugs were sold in the U.S., the highest share of any country. While this includes sales rather than just creation, it's our dominant role. Why? Switzerland is second, and they produce 10%. Global leaders revenue is 48 billion. Comparison, U.S. it's 1/4 the size of U.S. Germany is third. They produce 6 to 7%. What's next? Is there a next? No. So we've got almost half the market here because we are a capitalist. And look, I've got the bones to pick I have with the pharmaceutical companies are many. So we'll probably end up agreeing on a lot of stuff here if we actually delved into that. But the Hong Kong example is cute, but there's a lot of baggage that came with that. Right. like people living in boats and businesses getting, working conditions and all that cry stuff. But they allowed it, which allowed for people to move into Hong Kong like from communist China because they wanted to bust their ass and do something and make something out of their life. And then they did. And again, the results are just phenomenal. In just a few decades, it grew. Let's see Hong Kong today. Let's see. Hong Kong let's call it 1950. Images of Hong Kong 1950. All right, here is Hong Kong. Present, share screen. Here is Hong Kong in 1950. Hey, look at that. Look at that. All right, now let's see Hong Kong. Hong Kong today. Oh, freaking snap. And all of that was done, well, maybe not all of it, but probably 90% of that growth was during Hong Kong's free market. I don't even know how limited their free market is now. I just know that, was it 10, 20 years ago, China went in and they're like, I like your Hong Kong. I take it now. Thank you very much. We do the Bible thing yet? No. Okay, let's get to the Bible thing right now. King James Bible. This has just been a very fun conversation. I hope everyone else has been having fun too, not just me. We are in Job 13 today. Present share screen. All right. Oh, wrong screen, dummy. All right. Wow. We got a lot of freaking chats in the chat. All right. Job chapter 13. Let us read. Lo, this is Job talking. Mine eye hath seen all this. Mine ear hath heard and understood it. What ye know, the same do I know also. I am not inferior to you. Surely I would speak to the Almighty, and I desire to reason with God. But ye are forgers of lies. Ye are all physicians of no value. Oh, that ye would altogether hold your peace, and it should be your wisdom. Job's basically saying, shut up already. I know all this stuff. Hear now my reasoning, and hearken to the pleadings on my lips. Will ye speak wickedly for God, and talk deceitfully for him? Will ye accept his person? Will ye contend for God? Is it good that he should search you out? Or as one man mocketh another, do ye so mock him? He will surely reprove you if ye do secretly accept persons. That's an interesting way to phrase that. Shall not his excellency make you afraid, and his dread fall upon you? Your remembrances are like unto ashes, your bodies to bodies of clay. Hold your peace. Let me alone, that I may speak, and let come on me what will. Wherefore do I take my flesh in my teeth, and put my life in mine hand? Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him, but I will maintain mine own ways before him. Though also he also shall be my salvation. For an hypocrite shall not come before him. Hear diligently my speech and my declaration with your ears. Behold now, I have ordered my case. I know that I shall be justified. I love that. This is Job, the earliest book in the Bible. And Job is saying he will be justified. He knew something. Maybe that's why he's a prophet, or why he's considered a prophet. Who is he that will plead with me? For now, if I hold my tongue, I shall give up the ghost. Only do not two things unto me, then will I not hide myself from thee. Withdraw thine hand far from me, and let not thy dread make me afraid. Then call thou, and I will answer. Or let me speak, and answer thou me. How many are mine iniquities and sins? Make me to know my transgressions and my sin. Wherefore hidest thou thy face and holdest me for thine enemy? I do this sometimes, like when I'm praying, because part of my prayer life is confession. And if it's been like a day and I'm like, I have to confess something since yesterday, and I can't think of anything. I'm like, I know I must have done something wrong. I had a bad thought. I had a bad, bad word. I said something, but I can't think of anything. So I'm always like, make me know my transgressions. Not saying I'm like Job. Job is perfect in the ways of the Lord. So, wherefore hidest thou thy face and holdest me for thine enemy? Wilt thou break a leaf driven to and fro, and wilt thou pursue the dry stubble? For thou writest bitter things against me, and makest me to possess the iniquities of my youth. My youth. Thou puttest my feet also in stuff. So there's evidence that Job obviously didn't think he was perfect all his life. Not that I'm saying he thinks he's perfect now. God says he's perfect, but he probably, obviously we all do stupid things when we're kids. So it looks like Job is no exception to the rule. Thou puttest my feet also in the stocks, and lookest narrowly unto all my paths. Thou settest a print upon the heels of my feet. I don't know what that means. Anybody know what that means? And he, as a rotten thing consumeth as a garment that is moth-eaten. Thou puttest my feet also into the stocks, and lookest narrowly in my paths. Thou settest print upon the heels of my feet, and he, as a rotten thing, consumeth as a garment that is moth-eaten. I'll be honest, I have no idea what that means. Let's see what that is in another translation. You fasten my feet in shackles. You keep close watch on all my paths by putting marks on the soles of my feet. So man wastes away like something rotten, like a garment. Oh. Okay. All right. That makes sense. That makes sense. All right. Well, darn it. We are over an hour. I really enjoyed this conversation. Maybe we'll get back to it tomorrow. Anywho, Laveau, there's no BCE. There's before Christ and there's Anno Domini. That's it. All this modern, before the Christian era. Actually, the Christian era didn't start until, at least 33, right? But probably more after the resurrection. So the Christian era, well, that would be the resurrection, right? 33. Shouldn't start until 33 AD. Thanks for showing up, everybody. God bless you all. See you on the next exciting episode of Cross Examination.
Back in line, you dog! On your feet! Get them going!